Facebook, Instagram, and my people that's following me on YouTube. I just wanted to reach out to you today, just to kind of talk to you about resentments. I've noticed that a lot of people have been struggling with trying to manage with some resentments in their past, some resentments in their present, and even resentments just just in places they didn't even realize they were even having resentment. And today, the majority of my conversation is going to be about these unrealistic expectations. And the reason why I'm using the word unrealistic expectations is a lot of times we have expectations on people that do not have a basis for being realistic. And what I mean by realistic is that sometimes we put things on other people because of our own desires. So I just wanted to kind of talk about some of these things that don't worry, that's not the corona. Um, but I want to kind of talk to you guys about some of the things that I've noticed in people's relationships and how they get to the point where they have a resentment. So I wanted to tell you the story about one day I was hanging out with one of my kids, and I needed some quarters. I think it was to air up my tire or something like that. And all I had was like a $5 bill. And so I asked him, I was like, "Hey, I'll give you a five if you give me those four quarters." And so he just would not come. He would not give me the four quarters because he felt that the four quarters was more than the one $5 bill. So at that time, he didn't really understand the principle of money. Now, if I tried to do that switch, he would take it in a heartbeat. But the main things that I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about is sometimes I'm noticing that people are holding on resentments because they think that it's more valuable than letting go. And so with that, I just wanted to kind of talk to you guys about how to handle and how to deal with and even how you even got to a resentment. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you is feeling obligated. Just the whole term of being having an obligation. So a lot of times with people, I've noticed that they get confused the difference between being having a responsibility and feeling obligated. I've It's very rare that you will not have a negative emotion or a negative feeling inside whenever you feel obligated. So if somebody comes up and they ask you for help and you say no, or you have to try to decide whether or not you're going to help this person out, if you feel that feeling of obligation, is normally a negative feeling. And so whenever you have that negative feeling, most time if they keep on asking you questions or coming back for that same type of help, it starts to create a platform for you to have a resentment. So I want to kind of talk to you guys about the difference between an obligation and a responsibility. Like your children, that's a responsibility. You don't really feel obligated, but some people do, that may be in a distant relationship with their child, so they feel obligated. But normally whenever you start to see people feel obligated, it tends into them going into being an enabler. So I want you guys to really think about some of the relationships that you have with the people around you and kind of see if you're starting to feel kind of obligated. Now, if you're feeling responsible, that's a whole nother conversation, because that's a priority thing. So a lot of times if we look at some of the people in our life, we have to put it in categories and we have to prioritize. And if we get off of balance, we start to feel obligated to things that we should not be obligated to, or we try to put a obligation and make it into a responsibility. And then at the end of the day, whenever we get burnt out, whenever we get tired, then we start to create this resentment. The next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is boundaries. A lot of people think that they have boundaries, but a lot of times the boundaries are not conducive to having a realistic expectation of what boundaries are. So whenever we look at boundaries, I talked the other day about detachment, and I also talked about enmeshment. And with those things, a lot of times people don't know the level of boundary that they need. And like I always tell my clients, like, who do you need more boundaries with, the sheep or the wolf? And a lot of times they will say, well, the wolf. But to be honest, you have to watch out for sheep, because sometimes they're just a wolf in sheep clothing. And so if you release that boundary with them, and you make it too loose, then sometimes that sheep gets way too close, and then it turns out to be a wolf. So really think about your boundary level. Another thing about boundaries are, some people have boundaries like a basketball court, like a painted line, and people just kind of walk over that boundary. Some people have a boundary like tissue paper, and people just kind of blow straight through it. And so I don't want you guys to make like a castle moat for boundaries where people just can't get to you. But find that equal balance between allowing people to walk over your boundaries or disrespect your boundaries. Because what tends to happen is some of the people that have some not anti, I would say people that have the incorrect communication skill set. So instead of being assertive when people cross their boundaries, a lot of times they fall into this thing where they become passive, and then when they are passive, then they get so upset and they create this resentment that then they get aggressive, or they get passive aggressive. So I'll do a session on that probably next week, about the difference between assertive and passive aggressive, and aggressive and passive communication style, and then how it kind of helps with creating balance in relationship. But I want you guys to really look at the boundary level that you have with people, because that's a really good setup for creating a resentment in the future. And the last thing that I wanted to kind of talk to you about is the word no. The word no is a complete sentence. A lot of times people don't think that the word no is a complete sentence, but it is. And if someone asks you a question and you want to answer them with a no, you should not have to feel obligated to give them a reason why. A lot of times people want to know that reason why so that they can figure out a way to weasel into that no and kind of change it into a yes. But a lot of times we have to know the things that we have to say no to, and then sometimes we have to know the things that we have to say yes to. And I want to kind of help some of you guys out, because I know that some people are in have obligations to like the ministries, to schools, or for work, or just a lot of things that they have responsibilities or obligations to. A lot of times we have to look at the things that we are saying yes to and no to, because sometimes we're saying no to people in our lives and we don't think that we are. It's because we're telling too many people yes. So I've had to work on that balance with trying to say yes to my wife more, saying yes to my kids more, and then having to tell people no. But sometimes they want to know why I say the word, why I use no to them without an explanation. But if you really know my character, or you really know me, then you know that if I'm telling you no, then ultimately I must be telling somebody yes. And it's probably somebody that really needs me in their life. And so it's not a disrespect thing of me not being able to do things for you, or other people in my life. It's just that in my priorities, I try to keep a balance, but tell my kids and my wife yes, more than I tell them no. So I'm just kind of reaching out to you guys, just talking about resentments and how they start to come about. So really look at the things that you feel obligated for. Watch your boundaries, and if you say no, no is a complete sentence, but remember, when you tell someone no, that you're also telling someone yes. So I just wanted to tell you guys, it just might be something that you're dealing with today. If it's not, if it applies, then let it apply to your life. And if it doesn't, then just let it fly. So just wanted to hang out, tell you that I love you. It's a Friday. It's a wonderful day, and I hope your weekend gets a lot better. So it's the Cadillac Counselor, and I'm signing out.